we waiting for anyone?
Okay. Ria is here. Chad is here. Sam.
Hey.
Sam here. Nice. Mila. There we go. And Cameron. Is there anybody waiting in the waiting room?
Not at the moment, but you can just give them a few more minutes and then, yeah.
All right. We'll just wait a minute and then we can begin. So I think what's going to happen is Meera's going to come back and then she's going to, since the electricity is still on. Let's just wait on her.
Okay, I still have electricity, guys. All my panel members are here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Cool. They are playing over here with this load shedding thing, so I don't know if it's gonna happen or not, but in the meantime, I'll be hosting until it goes off if it does. But yeah, let's just wait for and start. Yeah. Just a reminder to the other people who are here, if you're not part of the panel, just keep your mics off and your cameras off as well. Yeah. Okay, you know what? It's past 8, so we are going to start. Welcome to everybody that is here to Tap In Tuesdays. The topic for today is how does trauma affect relationships? Just a trigger warning, there will be mentions of abuse and rape as well as sexual assault in some of our questions. So viewer discretion is advised. Yeah, so let me introduce my panel first. We've got Chad Peterson, Cameron, Ria, Pamela, and Samantha over here. Yep, that's everybody. And then we'll get started now. Our first question. The first question for today is, what is trauma? And Chad, can you answer that for me, please?
So basically, trauma is just any experience that deeply disturbs or distresses any person. So that can be, for example, abuse or rape. And that just basically gives that person trauma and distresses them because of that.
Thank you,
Basically.
Chad. Yeah. Thank you. Cameron, can you answer that for me, please?
To add on to what Chad said, yes, trauma is basically any experience that causes you any distress, but trauma is not necessarily something big that happens. Like, for example, losing a parent, that could cause trauma, but trauma can also be caused by something that most people won't necessarily consider a big deal, if I can say that, such as a breakup. That can cause emotional trauma. There's types of traumas that one can experience.
Yeah, that's true. Thank you, Cameron. Ria, can you answer that for me, please?
To add on to what Chad and Cameron said, I discovered that trauma is an emotional response to a terrible event. So like Cameron mentioned, a bunch of great examples of what can cause trauma.
Thank you, Ria. Sam, can you answer for me, please?
So trauma is basically the response to an event that overwhelms someone's ability to cope. So like something that causes someone to feel like helpless, and it can cause someone to it diminishes their sense of self and stuff like that. And it's caused from an event. It could be any event. It could be a small event or a large event. It depends.
Thank you, Sam. Mila, can you answer for me, please?
Okay, so I don't think there's much to say because everybody else has said it all. So just to sum it up, a response to a distressing event. I hope you guys are mindful and stable, but it's a response to a distressing event that basically overwhelms a person, and they're enables them to cope, and it diminishes their sense of self and their ability to feel a full range of emotions and or experiences.
Thank you, Mela, for your answer. Can everybody hear me clearly? Because some of you sound a bit scratchy, but okay, you can hear me. It's fine. Moving on to the next question. Thank you guys for your answers. But the next question is, what causes trauma? And Cameron, can you answer that for me, please? You gave some examples earlier, but do you have any more? Cameron, your audio's off now.
Sorry, I mentioned previously, there's different types of traumas and they are caused by different events. Where, for example, as I think it was Mila who mentioned, oh shit, guys, I just lost my train of thought.
It's okay.
Trauma is caused by various things, and different people experience trauma differently, where something will affect someone majorly. It might not be something big to another person. So, types of traumas you can experience is loss, where you lose a parent or close relative or something like that, where you can also experience not just emotional or psychological trauma, you can experience physical trauma. For example, a car accident that leaves a mark. You permanently always have this fear or this thing that's always in your head. Something like abuse in your childhood also causes like harassment. That's a traumatic experience for someone. Yeah, that's basically things that cause trauma.
Thank you. Thank you for your answer, Cameron. Sam, can you answer for me, please? What causes trauma?
So just to give a very basic, like simplified definition or like example of what causes trauma, it's just an overwhelmingly negative event that causes a lasting impact onto a victim's mental, emotional, or even physical stability. So anything that's just impacts you and it follows you, a part of who you are. So yeah, any event like that causes trauma.
Thank you. Thank you for your answer, Sam. Mela, do you have anything that you would like to add as to what causes trauma?
I think just like Cameron and Sam said, it's any negative event that happens, and it can be a small one or a bigger one. Depending on a person, it can affect people differently. Also, I think if you have trauma in your past, more things can give you more trauma than if you're, let's say, like a person who doesn't have any trauma. I believe that you'll face less things that threaten you with a huge traumatic, distressful event.
True. Thank you, Mela, for your answer. Chad and Ria, would you like to add on to that?
I agree with what everybody else was saying. Even Cameron and Hermela, when Hermela said that, the more trauma you have, the more susceptible you are to being triggered by a lot of things. And also with Cameron's examples of like how it just can't be like, it can be physical, so like an accident and an emotional thing that can cause you trauma, like emotional abuse in your home. So for me, it's like anything that is any event that has been overwhelmingly negative on you.
Thank you. Yeah. Chad, do you have anything else you'd like to add? Or do you agree with all the definitions? Cool. Okay. Thank you. Cool. Thank you, ladies. Moving on to the next question. What are triggers? Ria, can you answer that for me, please?
Okay. So a trigger is anything that reminds you of your trauma or anything bad that has happened to you in the past. And it can cause you to feel some sort of overwhelming sadness or panic or anxiety or even stress. It can be anything from like vivid images to anything like a song or a scent or like a color, depending on the degree of trauma that you have experienced.
Thank you. Yeah. Chad, can you answer that for me, please? Or what are triggers?
So it's basically, like Ria said, any sort of stimulus that makes a person recall their previously traumatic experience. So like she said, it can be a smell, a color, certain words in a sentence, for example, and that might trigger these memories and this emotion within you. Yeah.
Thank you, Chad. Mila, what are triggers?
Okay, so basically, I agree with Chad and Ria. So it's anything that makes you recall a traumatic experience or event. And like they said, it can be anything from something like really, really small to a word or a color, and or like something like big, like a particular like event happening, or like a particular person as well can be triggering. Yeah.
Thank you, Mila. Sam and Tamden, do you have anything that you would like to add on to what are triggers?
I think they hit all the points. I definitely agree with what they all said. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Sam, anything you'd like to add?
No, I agree with what everyone said. Like, it's anything. It can be psychological, physical. It's anything that just reminds you, takes you back to that previous traumatic experience. So yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. Okay, moving on to question 4. Okay. I'd like everybody to answer this question. Cool. So, when entering a new relationship, should you disclose whether you've been a victim of abuse, rape, or any type of trauma to your partner? Once you do get into this new relationship, should you disclose any of the above to them? Cameron, can you answer that one for me first? Your audio now.
I think in a situation like that where someone has experienced trauma, at some point your partner should know if you have experienced something like that, because if you think about it, you might be a certain way towards them because of this past experience, and it's unfair to them not knowing why. However, it is completely up to you when you choose to disclose this to your partner and how comfortable you feel opening up about a thing like that. Because with trauma, it's not something that's easy to speak about necessarily, despite you being close to this person and trusting them. You might not feel comfortable opening up because you haven't completely healed from it yourself or dealt with it or even spoke to anyone, because not everyone can go to therapy for things that have traumatized them. Not everyone deal with their trauma in a way that helps them heal and work through it. People tend to try and ignore a situation or move on from it. So in a relationship, yes, I do think you should disclose to your partner. However, it's completely up to you when you choose to do that.
Thank you for that, Tammy. Very well answered. Chad, can you answer that for me, please?
I agree with Tamrin. I think it's not immediately necessary. So like at the start of the relationship, for example, but as you go further into the relationship and you guys grow closer, I think it's helpful to inform them. Like you don't necessarily have to tell them this is what happened to me, but you can just tell them, look, these are my triggers, and it would be helpful if you tried not to do these things or whatever, you know what I mean? But as the relationship goes on and you guys get closer, it would be helpful for you to, if you feel comfortable, like Tamrin said, if you feel comfortable telling them this is what happened and these are my triggers, and I can see that maybe you've tried to not do these things. So yeah.
Thank you for your answer, Chad. Mila, can you answer that for me, please?
Okay, so I don't, I feel like trauma is like deeply personal, especially depending on it is, you know, if it's a car accident, you might not be able to like hide it as well as like maybe like a rape. Sorry, my internet connection is unstable, so if I'm breaking up. But
Yeah.
I believe that you should disclose your triggers as soon as you enter a relationship, but your triggers, not your trauma. So you tell them, okay, I have this and this problem, this and this word will make me react like this or whatever because I have trauma. You don't have to necessarily disclose, I have this kind of trauma, this happened or whatever. But I think it is helpful to know what triggers to avoid and like if you're acting in a certain way, why you are acting in that way. I think it helps you avoid like fights and just disagreements and also like being uncomfortable with your partner. But I don't necessarily think that the trauma has to be shared. If you want, like when you get closer to the person, sure, you know, but it is in the past. It's not like I don't know, especially if you've worked through it. If you haven't worked through it, maybe discuss it with them. But if you've worked through it and it's like it's all in the past, you do have triggers from it, but it's not like, you know, you're reliving it every day, whatever. Then I think it's okay if you like never choose to share it.
Yeah. Thank you for your answer, Meera. Sam, can you give me your answer? What do you think?
I agree with what everyone has said so far, especially what Meera said about like if you don't necessarily have to like really tell your partner your trauma. And I think it also depends on the type of relationship you have. Let's not talk like separate from romantic relationships. Like even friendships, like if it's not something you plan to take to a deeper level, like a casual friendship or a casual relationship, then yes, it would be very helpful to inform each other about, yeah, please don't do this. This will like trigger me in this way and this. But definitely not disclosing something as personal as a trauma, because expressing a trauma like sorts of makes you relive it. So that's a very like big step to take with another person. So I think it's all up to you whether or not you decide to disclose your trauma.
Thank you for your answer, Sam. Ria, can you answer that one for me, please? What do you think?
I completely agree with what everybody else said, especially with Cameron and Sam and Chad and well, that's everyone. You said that you don't have to. What my personal take is, my personal take is that in the beginning you don't have to, because you don't know what their intentions might be, despite you knowing what your intentions are in the beginning of the relationship. So they might be that sort of fear that, what if they're not emotionally ready to handle this? Let me just see where this goes first. Let me just be secure in where they are first, and then I can start to be more vulnerable towards them. You get what I'm saying? But then again, there are some instances where you might not be able to like properly articulate your trauma, like how Sam said. I also lost my train of thought, but I had a really good point. But it's like if you're working through it, you might not know how to say that all you can or yet. So that's why I think you don't have to say it immediately once the relationship starts, but rather like when you're further along the line, and then when they start to do more things and then you're aware, then that's when you're like, I'm actually not comfortable with this because this triggers me, and then that's when you can let them know.
Thank you for your answer, Ria. Okay, so everybody has answered. Does anyone else have anything else they would like to add? Can we move on to the next question? Okay, cool. We'll move on to the next question. So, question 5. Okay. So, okay. There's a question in the chat room, actually, but we will, okay, so there's a question in the chat room, but we will, before we move on to the next question, let me answer the question in the chat room because I'll probably forget about it later. Anyways, question is, if you aren't in a position where you can disclose your trauma early, then are you really at a stage where you can be in a relationship? I suppose that's what he means. So if you can't disclose your trauma early, then are you really in a position to be in a relationship? Does anybody want to answer that for me? What do you guys think? Meera, are you still here? I can't see you. Meera, yeah. Go for it.
Okay, I was putting my hand up. So
Yeah.
can you guys hear me? Okay. So I think because that person might be assuming that your trauma necessarily has to do with a relationship. Like you can have plenty trauma outside of relationship. Like, you know, that thing of like a relationship, like talking about a romantic relationship now, obviously. But yeah, you can have trauma outside of that kind of setting. And if you do have trauma outside of that setting that you do not want to bring into the relationship or that you do not want to disclose, it's totally your choice. Like I said, like it's your choice if you want to disclose it at all, you know? So like talking about like disclosing it early on, it's like, I mean, some people can't disclose their trauma at all. And I feel like that's just harsh. So I think because Ria said that some people don't even know their triggers at the beginning of the relationship. So you disclose, I think, the triggers that you do have or that you know of. And then as you're working through them and as you discover new triggers, you disclose them. And if ever you're comfortable enough in a relationship to disclose your trauma, then you disclose that as well. But I don't think that trauma necessarily has to be shared for a relationship to be better. Sometimes the weight of that trauma, in fact, brings your relationship to ruins, you know? So not that I'm saying that relationship would have been healthy if, I mean, they can't, you know, but yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your answer, Meera. Is there anyone else that would like to answer the question? Ria, your hands up. Go for it.
I think, oh, thank you. I think I should probably put that down. Okay. I think I think it's more important that you deal with the trauma first, because, you know, like a symptom of having trauma in your life is being like emotionally unavailable, or just being like learning what you did at home and then just like hitting your partner that you're in a relationship with. So those kind of things, that working on like your symptoms of trauma that make you hurt other people, I think that's more important. And dealing with your trauma first, I think that's more important than like being able to say like, oh, I'm not, because like how Meera explained that, you know, if you're not able to mention your trauma because it's so traumatic, then that does not have to mean that you're not necessarily ready to be in a relationship. Like they're not mutually exclusive. So I feel like that's kind of unfair. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's more important that you deal with your trauma and your triggers so that you don't react negatively and hurt somebody else because you're hurt. And then you can like take it from, because if you feel like you're sorted enough, and if you have a control on yourself, and then that's when you can say, okay, I'm ready to love somebody else despite what I've been through. Yeah.
Thank you for your answer, Ria. Anyone else, would you like to add on to that? Okay, anyone else? Cool. Just a quick warning, the Zoom meeting might like just automatically end in like 10 minutes, but then we can all just rejoin using the same link and everything. Just a reminder to Milani, once it ends, just restart the meeting and then we will all just join in again. Okay, Cool. So my right away. Anyways, moving on to the next question. So question 4 was, when entering a new relationship, should you disclose whether you've been a victim of abuse or rape or any other type of trauma to your partner? So the next question is, if after hearing this, would it be fair for your partner to leave? So if after hearing, about your trauma and, everything that you are dealing with, would it be fair for the person you are in a relationship with to leave and tell you, this isn't for me? Cameron, can you answer that for me, please?
For this, I think there are definitely two sides to a situation like this. Ria mentioned earlier that sometimes you'll come into a relationship and you are with someone and you can't necessarily disclose your trauma to them because they might not be emotionally ready to deal with that, someone being close to them, knowing that this person went through something like that. And in a situation like this, sometimes your trauma might be a trigger to your partner, where something you experience and you disclose that trigger to them might be triggering for them too. So not saying that it's right for people to just leave each other because of trauma, but you do need to consider your partner's traumas, their triggers, as well as yours.
Yeah, I get you. Thank you for your answer, Damien. Okay, cool. Mila, can you answer that one for me, please?
Okay, so I definitely liked Tamara's answer. I think, yeah, that's definitely, I'm also losing my train of thought, but I also think that, I'm just gonna gather my thoughts.
It's okay.
Sorry. Right, so I think that sometimes, I mean, it's fair for them to leave if it's overwhelming to them and if they think, okay, this is too much for me to handle. Maybe I'm not like equipped to help this person enough the way that they need help, right? Especially if you put the weight of needing help onto your partner, which I don't think you should do. Like, it's not their responsibility to take care of you. You're supposed to come into that relationship like a full person, and then they're also a full person, and you're there being two people that are adding value to each other's lives, not one person trying to like use the other person as a crutch and stuff. But I think it depends, because I have heard some people be like, oh bro, that girl was like raped, like I'm not gonna be with her because she was raped, and like her body count or whatever. If it's that kind of thing, I think it's not fair, obviously, but still, I mean, nobody would want that kind of person as a partner anyways, so you'd be glad that they left, I suppose, but it's not fair for them to leave for that kind of reason. But if they feel like they can't handle your trauma, or they can't like help you with it, or they feel like Tamron said, it would be triggering to them to be dealing with your trauma, then I think it's fair for them to leave.
Thank you for your answer, Mila. Thanks. Sam, can you answer that one for me, please?
I completely agree with everything everyone has said. Like, you need to take into account the other person, the relationship's feelings and their trauma, and how you guys would coexist, working through your traumas together, and if it's even possible to do so. So I think if it comes to this point where your traumas would clash per se, or it would be too difficult to work through it, it's completely understandable for a partner to leave if they say, listen, yeah, I know what you're going through is difficult, but I can't be the one to help you through it. So I think it's best if we just don't do this. I do think it would be the only fair for them to be able to leave without being the bad guy, because they're looking out for not only themselves, but like for the other person in the relationship as well.
Yeah, definitely. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you for your answer. Sam, moving on to Chad. Can you answer that for me, please?
Yeah, I agree with what Tamrin and Mela and Sam have said, that yes, it's fair for them to leave, but like Mela said, it shouldn't be just because like of this trauma. But if they say that like they aren't capable of helping you through this trauma, and it's the best for both of you to go your separate ways, then that's completely fair. And it's also fair for them to say further down the line, like if they say at first, yes, it's fine, I'm here for you, but then further down the line they realize, look, I thought I was, but I'm not capable of helping you through your trauma because I'm also still dealing with my own, whether it's their own trauma or mental illness or whatever, so they can't handle both of that, then it's also completely fair for them to leave. And that doesn't then make them a bad person per se.
Yeah, thank you, Chad, for your answer. Ria, can you answer that for me?
Everybody had really excellent points that I really liked. Like especially if saying that if the person doesn't have the emotional capacity to deal with your trauma and their trauma as well, I think you can help as like altruistically, just to be a good person. You can help them out because you love them and you want to help them out. But at the same time, it's not their responsibility to make sure that you heal. I feel like that's a very heavy and unfair expectation for them to be doing the bulk of your work. So in that kind of sense, then yes, it is fair for them to leave. But at the same time, what somebody has gone through or what somebody has put somebody else in, that doesn't necessarily define entirely who they are. So like Mela said, just because let's check, but I found out she got raped, so now I'm not gonna be with her anymore because her body count is too high or whatever. That's a very stupid and horrible reason for you to say that you're not going to be in a relationship with someone. So I feel like it is fair, but at the same time, it's not, because what somebody has gone through is not all that they are. It doesn't have to define all who they are.
Yeah, totally. Thank you all for your answers. The meeting is going to cut off in like 2 minutes time, and I think that it's probably going to cut us off while we're answering. So Milani, can you please just end the meeting and then restart it? So we're going to end it quickly now, and then we'll just rejoin it like right away as soon as Milani starts it again. So like just a second. So yeah, Milani, you can just end it now. Cool.